he has a lot of influence over there. And he still hangs out with this piece of shit. And if you have kids of your own, and you still hang out with a dude that profited off of dead children, you're a piece of shit too. Sorry. And I just don't know what to say after that. Somebody's in there like, damn, you're a piece of shit by association. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you, but yeah, if I have anything in common, these right-wing people, I'm a conspiracy nut when it comes to this too. I ain't buying this, all right? I'm sorry, I just don't. I cannot let that go, okay? Yeah, that sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. Yeah. Yeah, call me crazy. Put me in a straitjacket right now. I ain't letting this shit go.
So yeah, it's insane because they're like, oh wow, the guy killed himself and there was no evidence against him and he was a billionaire. Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah, right, okay. Look, maybe it doesn't play out like the thing I have in my head, but some ain't right. All right, come on. Yeah, come on.
It gets even better that the DOJ, they allegedly released footage from outside his cell that is missing a minute. Like the timestamp on it.
Wow. Yeah, people, I am not. I mean, we'll never know, but I ain't buying this shit. I ain't buying this shit they put out. Hell no. But would you look at that? Made it to the end of the video. That means you really love this. Just go ahead and press that like button. Subscribe while you're at it. And check out our other channels on social media like Instagram, TikTok, and our Patreon. We have new stuff coming up all the time. And we'll see you on the next video.
The fantastic 4-in-1 pizza. Only $7.99 at Little Caesars.
Okay.
Pizza.
There's a faster way to get hard than Viagra. It's called rocket fuel. It's a chewable mint that...
Most people are never exposed to real history. In school, we usually don't even read history. We read history textbooks. Mainstream ones that avoid the underlying realities and propagate all sorts of myths that serve the powers that be. Myths that are not very useful, in fact harmful to those of us who might want to believe in truth and in democracy. This particular segment of Real History is entitled Myths of the Founding Fathers.
There's only one duty: to Germanize this country by the immigration of Germans and to look upon the natives as refugees. Adolf Hitler speaking in 1941 of his plans to colonize Ukraine. As to their fear, we presume that our strength and our weakness is now so visible that they must see we have only to shut our hands to crush them. Should any tribe be foolhardy enough to take up the hatchet at any time, the seizing the whole country of that tribe and driving them across the Mississippi as the only condition of peace would be an example to others and a furtherance of our final consolidation. Thomas Jefferson, letter to William Henry Harrison, February 1803.
As we were taught in school, a group of dedicated leaders of our young nation, called our Founding Fathers, met in Philadelphia in 1787 to build a nation, to write a constitution. The United States of that time, described as an egalitarian society, is supposedly free from the extremes of want and wealth that characterized the feudal old world. But in fact, there were landed estates, there were colonial mansions that were really quite impressive and demonstrated a most impressive accumulation settlements, men of influence received vast land grants from the British Crown. By 1700, 3/4 of the acreage in New York State belonged to fewer than a dozen persons. By 1760, fewer than 500 men in 5 colonial cities controlled most of the commerce, the banking, the mining, manufacturing, and most of the newspapers and journals on the eastern seaboard, and they owned most of the land. It was hardly your egalitarian middle-class society. As of 1787, property qualifications left perhaps more than a third of the white male population disfranchised. Property qualifications for holding office were so steep that most voters could not even qualify as candidates. Thus, a member of the New Jersey legislature had to be worth about £1,000 free of
This particular segment of Real History is entitled The Myths of the Founding Fathers.
There's only one duty: to Germanize this country by the immigration of Germans and to look upon the natives as rebels. Adolf Hitler, speaking in 1941 of his plans to colonize Ukraine. As to their fear, we presume that our strength and their weakness is now so visible that they must see we have only to shut our hands to crush them. Should any tribe be foolhardy enough to take up the hatchet at any time, the seizing the whole country of that tribe and driving them across the Mississippi as the only condition of peace would be an example to others and a furtherance of our final consolidation. Thomas Jefferson, letter to William Henry Harrison, February 1803.
As we were taught in school, a group of dedicated leaders of our young nation, called our Founding Fathers, met in Philadelphia in 1787 to build a nation and to write a constitution. The United States of that time has been described as an egalitarian society. It was supposedly free from the extremes of want and wealth that characterized the feudal old world. But in fact, there were landed estates and there were colonial mansions that were really quite impressive and demonstrated a most impressive accumulation of wealth. From the earliest English settlements, men of influence received vast land grants from the British Crown. By 1700, 3/4 of the acreage in New York State belonged to fewer than a dozen persons. By 1760, fewer than 500 men in 5 colonial cities controlled most of the commerce, the banking, the mining, the manufacturing, and most of the newspapers and journals on the eastern seaboard, and they owned most of the land. It was hardly your egalitarian middle-class society. As of 1787, property qualifications left perhaps more than a third of the white male population disfranchised. Property qualifications for holding office were so steep that most voters could not even qualify as candidates. Thus, a member of the New Jersey legislature had to be worth about £1,000 free of debt even to run for office. There also were no secret ballots. The men who got together in Philadelphia to frame the Constitution were financially successful planters, slaveholders, merchants, creditors, bankers, and manufacturers. Who else can take 4.5 months off to go sit in Philadelphia and write a constitution? Many of them were linked to each other by kinship and marriage, and by years of service in Congress or the military or diplomatic service. And they had 3 things they wanted to do. They wanted to build a stronger central government to deal better with the conditions of trade and industry within 13 states. They also wanted to build a stronger central government to deal better with other nations. There was a third reason. It's the one that the historians who don't want to bother with real history never talk about. The framers of the Constitution were very troubled with the increasingly insurgent spirit, rebellious spirit among the common population. There were attempts to take over state governments, there was broad agitation, and the wealthy class looked to a national government as a means of protecting their interests, a means of building a stronger mechanism of national control. Most historians say very little about the actual plight of the common people in that time. Most of the agrarian population, and about 85% of Americans in 1787 lived in agrarian. Most of them consisted of small farmers, tenants, indentured servants. Indentured servants were white people who were in indenture, that is, they were in conditions of servitude. It wasn't quite slavery because it was for a fixed time and they could get out eventually. They could work their way out. These people were burdened by heavy rents, ruinous taxes, and low incomes. To survive, they frequently had to borrow money and wait to pay their debts. They mortgaged their future crop. When you mortgage your future crop, you go still deeper into debt. The large numbers of them were caught in that cycle of rural indebtedness, which is today still the common fate of many agrarian peoples in many countries who are in the grip of the moneyed interest. Throughout this period, by the way, newspapers complained of, quote, increasing numbers of young beggars in the streets. Economic prisoners crowded the jails. Many were incarcerated for debts or non-payment of taxes. And among the American people, there grew the feeling that the revolution against the English crown had been fought for no good reason.
To the ones who carry us. Kate Spade.
Disorders of a violent but organized kind occurred in a number of states. In the winter of 1787, the most dramatic disorder was when debtor farmers in western Massachusetts, led by Daniel Shays, took up arms, but their rebellion was crushed by the state militia after several skirmishes that left exactly 11 men dead and scores wounded. When the founding fathers, so-called founding fathers, met in Philadelphia, they were determined that persons of birth and fortune and affluence should control the affairs of the nation and check what they call the leveling impulses of the propertyless multitude that composed what Madison called the majority faction. James Madison played probably the most crucial role in the Constitution, putting the Constitution together. Talked about how it was important in his famous Federalist Paper No. 10, how it was important to keep the spirit and form popular government with only a minimum of the substance. How do you construct a government? This was the task, he said, that the framers were facing. How do you construct a government that would win some popular support but would not hamper existing class history? A government strong enough to service the growing needs of an entrepreneurial class while withstanding the democratic egalitarian demands of the popular class. And the way you do it is by excluding the popular class from points of power. The framers all agreed with Madison when he wrote in the Federalist No. 10 that, quote, the most common and durable source of faction, and by faction he meant class whenever he used the word faction, the most common and durable source of faction has been the various and unequal distribution of property. Those who hold and those who are without property have ever formed distinct interests in society. Now, if you say that today, you're called a Marxist. Well, Madison was talking about reality, and we can't help it if certain forms of reality are Marxist. The first object of government, Madison went on, is the protection of different and unequal faculties for acquiring property. Elbridge Gerry, another one of the famous Philadelphia, noted that democracy was the worst of all political evils. Both he and Madison warned of the danger of the rebellion spirit. Roger Sherman of Connecticut, another delegate to Philadelphia. The people should have as little to do as may be about the government. Alexander Hamilton, of course. All communities divide themselves into the few and the many. The first are the rich and the well-born. The other are the mass of the people. And the people are turbulent and changing. They seldom judge or determine rightly. So these delegates were rather explicit that the further you could keep people from government, the better. Now, they spent many weeks debating their interests, and most of the historical accounts about the Founding Fathers is about these differences, the differences between merchants and slave owners and manufacturers, the debate between the Northerners and the Southerners. This was a debate of haves versus haves. Each group sought to safeguard its own interests, and it involved mostly questions of representation and structure. On these issues, there were no dirt farmers or poor artisans attending the convention to offer an opposing view. They couldn't take 4 months off to go to Philadelphia. And for the most part, the framers built a constitution that would have the power to support commerce and protect the interests of property in a variety of ways. Lay and collect taxes, establish a national currency, fix imports and duties, and the like, set up uniform laws on bankruptcy, pay the debts, and so forth. Some of the delegates, for instance, were land speculators, and they expressed a real concern about Western holdings and dealing with the Indian tribes. And so Congress was given both the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States. That's right from the Constitution. In other words, to deal with the territories and the Indians. Some delegates speculated very highly in inflated and nearly worthless securities that had been floated under the Articles of Confederation. Well, under Article 6, all debts that had been incurred under the Confederation were now valid against the new government, and this allowed speculators to make enormous profits because they bought these securities for pittance, and now they were being refunded and honored at face value. So they made quite a killing for themselves. In the interest of these merchants and creditors, the states were prohibited from issuing paper money or imposing duties on imports and exports or interfering with the payment of debts. There was another form of property that was mentioned in the Constitution, a very important one, and it was afforded a special accommodation: slavery, the property of other human beings. They were never called slaves. They were persons in bondage and such, and persons in servitude. They were never called slaves in the Constitution, but that's what they were. The importation of slaves was given constitutional protection for about 20 years, another 20 years.
I'll fix the lightning rod.
The Slavs are a mass of born slaves who feel the need of a master. Adolf Hitler, 1941. I advance it therefore as a suspicion only that the blacks are inferior to the whites in the endowments both of body and mind. This unfortunate difference of color and perhaps of faculty is a powerful obstacle to the emancipation of these people. Thomas Jefferson, 1780.
Pull this lever and we'll
Slaves who escaped from one state to another had to be delivered up to the original owner upon claim. This was a provision that was unanimously adopted in the convention. The framers were also worried about rebellions by workers and such. Would the state militias prove reliable as the working class grew in numbers? And by the way, they anticipated a day when the mass of the people would be working not on their own land, but working as employees. Well, Congress was given the task of, quote, organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia and calling it forth to suppress insurrections. That's a quote right from the Constitution. And by the way, that was a provision that would prove a godsend for the industrial barons a century later in the 1870s, 80s, and 90s, when the army was used repeatedly to break strikes by miners and railroad workers and factory workers. The method of representation was interesting. Nobody could vote for the president. The chief executive was to be selected by an electoral college that was voted by the people. But the framers anticipated that these meetings of the electoral college in each in the various states would consist of political leaders and men of substance, again, who would be able to travel to the state capital and sit there and debate who should be president. They'd gather in their various states and they would choose a president of their own liking. So the electoral college was set up as a kind of filter against popular sentiment. The Senate could not be elected. The Senate was picked by the state legislatures rather than directly elected by the people. Senators were not elected by the people until the 20th century. The Supreme Court, which could have final say over the constitutionality of laws, was elected by no one. Its justices were appointed to life tenure by the president and confirmed by the Senate. So you had a very elaborate structure up there that was far removed from the popular will. The only portion of government that was directly elected by the people was the House of Representatives, and even that took something of an argument to get through. It took a number of people. The delegates finally agreed to having the people elect the lower house. So when they talked about the people, by the way, when they talked about the people, they were referring to a select portion of the population. As I said, property qualifications disfranchised the poorest white males in various states. There were all sorts of other ways of disfranchising would-be voters. Literacy tests, inaccessibility of voting. You'd have to go 10, 15 miles on a horse and wagon to get to the county seat to vote.
Lumina crystal will boost the power of my ritual. It'll work this time.
Half of the adult population was denied suffrage because they were women. American Indians had no access to the ballot.
Susie,
about 1/4 of both
What was
men
that
and women
horrifying
had
thing
no
with
vote
her?
because they were held in bondage. Even the African Americans who had gained their legal freedom, the black people who had gained their freedom in both the North
That's
and the
the
South,
Harvest
which was a
Lord.
small portion,
Studied him
but
in
none
class.
was allowed
He's
to
a
vote
powerful
until the
spirit
passage
from
of the
the
14th
underworld
Amendment.
who harvests
The question
the
comes
souls
up,
of the
were these
innocent.
framers of the Constitution motivated by financial
like she's in
interests of their
Galvanos
own,
Tower.
simply,
That must be
or
where
by
the
a
Harvest
national
Lord is
interest?
enchanting the storm
This has been
amulets.
debated
Wizard,
ever since
please
Charles
free my
Beard
sister.
published a very great book, which I recommend to you, An Economic Interpretation of the Constitution, which he published in 1913. The defenders of our, quote, founding fathers said they weren't guided by their class interests. They were concerned with higher things other than just lining their purses. They were motivated by a concern for nation building that went beyond their particular class interests. The argument so goes. Well, I think that the fallacy to presume that there's a dichotomy between the desire to build a strong nation and the desire to protect wealth is a fallacy. And the other fallacy is to presume the framers could not have been motivated by both. In fact, like most people, they believed that what was good for them was ultimately good for the entire society. Their universal values and their class values went hand in hand. And to discover the existence of a higher sentiment that they wanted a strong sense of government, a strong nation, doesn't eliminate the self-interested one. Just as many of these same framers could say and sincerely feel that they were dedicated to the principle of liberty for all and at the same time own slaves, so they could serve both their nation and their estates. The point is not that they were devoid of a grander sentiment of nation building, but that there was nothing in their concept of nation that worked against their class interests. And there was a great deal in their concept of nation, including a strong central government, a government with checks and balances, and a government that was removed from popular will. A great deal in their concept of a national government that worked for their class was to filter out the popular will and to thwart or blunt the leveling impulses. Those historians who argue that the founders were motivated primarily by high-minded objectives consistently overlook the fact that the founders themselves repeatedly stated their intentions to erect a government strong enough to protect the haves from the have-not. I mean, they said that explicitly. They gave voice to the crassest class prejudices. I just quoted you a few examples. They talked about how the people were unreliable, the people couldn't judge, and all that sort of thing. Their concern was to diminish popular control and resist all tendencies toward class equalization, class justice, or what they called in that day, leveling. Their opposition and their distrust of democracy, and by democracy they meant what Plato and Aristotle meant by democracy, and what I mean by democracy, they meant a system not just of elections, but a system that served the interests of the demos, of the mass of the people. Their opposition to democracy and their dedication to moneyed interest was openly and repeatedly avowed. In fact, their preoccupation with their class interest was so pronounced that one of the delegates, James Wilson of Pennsylvania, finally complained that he was hearing too much about how the sole or primary object of government was profit and defending property, protecting property. The cultivation and improvement of the human mind, Wilson maintained, was the most notable object. And this was a very fine sentiment, and it evoked no opposition from his colleagues, and they continued to go about their business. As for democracy, let me point out that when Colonel Mason of Virginia got up toward the end of the convention, and he said, "This Constitution needs a Bill of Rights," that proposal was voted down unanimously, without debate, with just the delegation from Massachusetts abstaining. So the Constitution was a rather undemocratic instrument. Well, if it was so blatantly elitist, how did it manage to win ratification? How did it win the popular vote? Well, in fact, the Constitution was never submitted to a popular vote. It was never ratified by the people. It was ratified in state conventions, and those conventions were controlled by generally men of substance as themselves.
I can order contacts in 5 minutes and get them the next day.
Ma'am.
Wow!
And having said all this, let me add, though, that the Constitution was not without some real democratic concessions for its time. For instance, there was no property qualifications for federal office. Salaries were going to be paid to officials. This eliminated the practice of public office being open only to the supported. The president and all office holders were elected for limited terms. No one could claim a life tenure on any office except the Supreme Court justices and the other federal judges. There was no religious test required for qualification. That was a progressive and democratic step forward. By the way, that's a feature that's very different. In a number of state constitutions, there were explicit bans against Catholics, Jews, and non-believers. Bills of attainder were outlawed. That is, you can't find someone guilty of an offense without benefit of a trial. And then eventually, the Congress was forced to pass the first 10 amendments. In fact, the only way they could guarantee getting the Constitution ratified, a number of states said, "We'll ratify it only if you pledge to put in a Bill of Rights." And that Bill of Rights had a whole bunch of excellent democratic things like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble, freedom to peaceably petition for redress of grievances, the separation of church and state. The Constitution also did something else. It guaranteed a Republican form of government. Article 1, Section 9. No title of nobility shall be granted by the Constitution. In other words, it said, this is an open system and all that, but you cannot go back to a monarchy or aristocracy. Which was a real concession because 21 of the 55 delegates favored some form of monarchy. They couldn't come out and say it because of popular opposition, but almost half of the delegates, if they had their way, they would have had a king. So these men feared and loathed democracy, and yet on a number of occasions they found it necessary to show some regard for popular sentiment, as with the direct election of the lower house, as with putting in a Republican form of government, and so forth. They understood that if the Constitution was going to be accepted by the states, and if it was going to have any stability, it had to gain some measure of popularity. 1777. But they felt compelled to do something for the people. So they were powerful. They dominated the events of 1787 to 1789, but they were far from omnipotent. The class system they sought to preserve was itself the cause of marked restlessness among the people. This was the contradiction that Constantine knew. There still continued to be land seizures by the poor, food riots, and other violent disturbances throughout the 18th century. This popular ferment, by the way, spurred the framers in their effort to erect a strong central government, but it also set a limit on what they could do. What I'm saying is they didn't give us the Bill of Rights. They didn't give us these democratic things. These were won by the agitation of democratic forces in society. These were concessions, including the Bill of Rights, which they reluctantly gave us. They had to make concessions, just the way management today reluctantly gives certain concessions or a contract to its workers because the workers are well organized enough and the same way they get back home. So it is under the threat of democratic rebellion that they made these democratic concessions. They kept what they could and they grudgingly relinquished what they felt they had to. And what I'm saying, the myth of the Founding Fathers is that they were driven not by a love of democracy, but by a fear of it. Not by a love of the people, but by a prudent desire to avoid popular uprisings. The Constitution then was a product not only of class privilege, but of class struggle. A struggle that continues to this day. This is Michael Parenti talking some real history.
This is EJ with Non-Compete. I want to thank the people who donated to our fundraiser to allow us to put together this documentary. Putting this together takes a lot of time, a lot of research. We try to make sure all the images and facts that we present are accurate. And if you would like to see another episode of this series, the next one would be on the Spanish-American War. We do have a Give Butter in the description. We thank you very much if you decide to donate. Either way, thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, all those things, so that more people will see this video. Please be safe. Solidarity. Thanks for watching.
How do you professionally tell your manager, stop micromanaging me?
With Grammarly. I appreciate your guidance, but I would prefer to have a bit more autonomy in my work. It would help me grow and...
Happy 4th of July! I'm frustrated. It's that, super patriotic day where we light fireworks and sparklers, wave flags, and pretend everyone in this country is free! Well, let's be real, a whole lot of people don't feel very free right now. It depends on who you ask, right? Because freedom that people feel, well, it's sort of selective. It's conditional, and it's absolutely not for everyone. Shut up, Carrie. Shut up. Let's start with the big, beautiful bill that just passed. I'm frustrated. It's kicking people out of this country at record speed while simultaneously being celebrated by the same people who constantly shout from the rooftops that they're Christians. The religion that's based on loving your neighbor and helping the stranger and caring for the poor. Jesus would be flipping some tables over this shit. Somehow, deporting families and gutting support for the poor that's the new form of Christian values, right? I think I must have missed that sermon. I stopped going to church a long time ago. I hate to bring this up on a video that's already so exciting and heartfelt, but I saw something the other day about an 11-year-old girl, a U.S. citizen recovering from a rare brain tumor. Yeah, she got deported, her and her family, and 4 of her siblings, 3 of whom were also U.S. citizens, on her way to a checkup.
56 past the hour, Donald Trump's immigration crackdown has resulted in a U.S. citizen girl with brain cancer and her 4 U.S. citizen siblings all deported with their undocumented parents when they were on their way to an emergency medical appointment.
On your way to a doctor to get care, that's a good time to get deported. If hell is real, you people are going to it. Also, I posted this on my Instagram story the other day. ICE arrested a 6-year-old boy with leukemia at immigration court. His family is suing. And at first, I didn't even know if I believed this, so I asked ChatGPT. And the claim is true. They arrested a fucking 6-year-old with leukemia. Cool. WWJD, y'all. Again, the hell that I don't believe in is getting real hot for for some people out there.
Migrants trying to earn legal status in the U.S. are required to attend a series of court hearings. But more and more frequently, these court appearances are becoming targets for ICE. Last month, a mother and her 2 children, originally from Honduras, were detained in the hallway after their immigration hearing in Los Angeles. One of those children, a 6-year-old boy with leukemia. He has a 9-year-old sibling. The family is currently being held in Texas and is now suing the administration over their arrest.
They waited to enter the United States lawfully. When they crossed into the United States, they were paroled in, meaning that the Department of Homeland Security determined that the family was not a danger to the community and not a flight risk. The Department of Homeland Security moved to close their cases. The judge granted that motion. As the family stepped out of the courtroom, there were men waiting for them dressed in civilian clothing. It is terrifying to immigrant communities who are trying to do everything right. The little girl and the little boy cry every night and pray to God for God to let them out of the detention center. The 9-year-old has lost her appetite. The 6-year-old barely eats.
So I'm sitting here editing this, and I added more of these clips for context than I originally had planned for, because I just feel like it points out this complete loss of humanity. I'm going to go back into the other me that was like kind of in a little bit more of a high-spirited tone, but I did want to add this because it highlights the just absurd hypocrisy that so many people who claim to be Christians have, and it is depressing. Okay. Gotta love that Christian love. And with this big, beautiful pile of bullshit that just passed, Medicaid got taken away from 17 million people. Can you conceptualize that? Like, people are gonna start feeling this real soon.
Over 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily due to the massive cuts to Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act.
Oh, and you know what? While we're at it, let's take a bunch of those food stamps too. We don't need it. What was that about feeding the hungry? Just let them eat cake. Kids don't need food stamps. They don't even know how to send mail yet. But what about the children? Think of the children! The Republicans cry all of the time. We're pro-life, but it stops at birth, you know. Can't regulate those guns either because school shootings are less important than my rights. My rights that I'm happy to take away from everybody else. You want to choose what you want to do with your body or marry who you love? I don't give a shit. Take that right away. Frustrating. I'm frustrated. We're pro-life. We're pro you having a really shitty life. We're gonna cut Medicaid and slash healthcare per million because we love life. And pregnant women, hey, you don't want that baby or something goes wrong, you're having a miscarriage, well, tough shit. Hope you make it out alive. If you want more context on that, please watch the last video. I spent a long time talking about this. Forced birth, no support, and good luck feeding your kids once they're a year. Pro-life. Pro-life and freedom. But again, like, what freedom where? For who? Unless you're a billionaire or like a straight white man in power, or a corporation, I guess. This country doesn't give a shit about your freedom. Or your freedom to even breathe clean air. We're on a dying planet, too. And instead of protecting it there, just fast-tracking a path to destruction. Just as fast as we can get there. For profit, you know, because clean air, we don't need water, clean water. That big, beautiful bullshit bill repealed clean air standards. We don't need those. We don't need to regulate. That's fine. Oh, and it cut green energy incentives, because who wants to be motivated to help the planet? And we removed environmental review waivers, because I'm sure it's fine. Sweet! What does that mean, really? It doesn't really do anything. It means fewer emission controls, less support for renewable energy, and greater risks for unvetted projects harming the ecosystem. Oh, okay. Well. Frustrating! And here's the part that really makes me lose it. Trump and crew sold a fantasy. They promised they'd help the working people. We're gonna lower the price of eggs. The eggs cut costs, save you money. And now, billionaires are gonna just get all those tax cuts. And who's gonna pay for it? Well, you are. Because these are more expensive, and now you're also gonna pay thousands and thousands more to the IRS. But hey, he owned the libs, right? Oh, sick burn.
This bill will provide a $664 billion tax break to the top 1% at a time when the top 1% already own more wealth than the bottom 93%. This bill makes the obscenely rich, the oligarchs, even richer, while attacking the most basic needs of working families and the most vulnerable people in our society.
Independence Day. Yay. Really quick, side note, let me be very clear. This is not about the troops. I do respect the people who serve. My grandfather was a World War II veteran. This has nothing to do with not respecting the sacrifice.
Okay, baby. Can we maybe be somewhere else? I love you. I know you're only being nice to me because I have food, though.
Sacrifices people have made, but I am pissed off about our government. Loving this country does not mean blindly worshiping the government. I feel like criticizing injustice and bad moves, I feel like that is patriotic. And if your freedom and independence, it depends on somebody else losing theirs, that's not freedom. Honey, that's control. So yeah, happy Independence Day. Where's my flag? Happy Independence Day. Light your fireworks, wave your flags, and grill your burgers. Hell, that's what I'm gonna be doing with my kids. They're 1 and 3. They don't need to hear about all this right now. They'll learn all about it one day. I'm gonna raise them to be very good people. But for now, fireworks. We're gonna look at the pretty sparklers, goddammit, and I'm gonna tell them it's because I have magical powers. We like to pretend in this household. But for all of you, y'all should not pretend. Do not pretend we're the freest country in the whole world. Women are dying, immigrants are being thrown out in the most horrific ways. Our planet's on fire and our working class is drowning. But yeah, let's celebrate that freedom. 4th of July freedom. Horrific deportation, but hey, we love Jesus, the same Jesus that said to love your neighbor, care for the poor, welcome the stranger, feed the hungry. But instead we're cutting Medicaid. Yeah, so pro-life, we're gonna let people die. So pro-freedom that we're gonna take away your bodily autonomy and call it values. So concerned for the unborn, but once the baby is here, good luck. No health care, no food assistance, no decent education. And then the very air that we breathe on this earth, if you want to protect it, that is just a radical concept. Waste of money. It's just not, it doesn't feel like freedom today. It doesn't feel like independence. It feels like, I don't know, a big pile of hypocrisy bullshit with a sparkler sticking out of it. And that's all I gotta say about that. Happy 4th.
I happen not to be active in organized religion, not my thing. But I have read the Bible. And this is what Jesus said, and I quote, "For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me." End of quote. That, my friends, is what morality is all about.
Opiate addiction doesn't mean you're a bad person.
Big ideas.
We're going to dive straight in with our main story tonight, which concerns a piece of legislation dear to President Trump's heart.
The One Big Beautiful Bill is among the most important pieces of legislation in our country's history. I don't think there's ever been anything bigger. And I said, let's make it one big, beautiful bill. We're voting essentially on the big, beautiful, that gorgeous, big, beautiful bill.
Stop it! Stop it right now! First, the One Big Beautiful Bill sounds either like a lumberjack with an OnlyFans page or a Pornhub tab for people who come to toucans, but it is truly massive, and it's currently moving through Congress after passing the House by the narrowest of margins.
With cheers of USA, House Republicans passed their sweeping version of the president's agenda. Republicans in the House held 2 overnight sessions. In the end, Speaker Johnson eked out his biggest victory yet, winning by a single vote, though the dark of night cost him. One member who would have voted yes overslept and missed it.
It's true, it passed by a single vote, even though one representative, Andrew Garbarino, slept through it, which is a little surprising given his official portrait seems less sleepy and more high on expired cough medicine. The bill's currently in the Senate, and Trump is pushing them to pass their version as soon as possible, posting, "To my friends in the Senate, lock yourself in a room if you must. Don't go home, pass it immediately. No one goes on vacation until it's done." This whole process has been rushed to the point that some House members who voted for the bill later had to admit that they hadn't read all of it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, arguably one of the worst things to come out of Georgia since the Trail of Tears, was upset when she learned the House version included a provision prohibiting states from restricting AI for the next 10 years.
This past week,
I have come out in full transparency and said, when I voted for the One Big Beautiful Bill, I didn't know about this clause.
Yeah, that's not great, although to be fair, who among us hasn't approved things that we haven't read properly? It's why none of you noticed Apple's new terms and conditions technically give them rights to your firstborn child. It is true, Tim Cook is pulling a Rumpelstiltskin right now, and he's coming for them as soon as they can hold a tiny little screwdriver. But a lot of people don't know what's in this bill. About 2/3 of the public say they've heard little or nothing about it, but when they do, they don't like it. As polls show, those who've heard a great deal or good amount about it oppose it by a roughly 2-to-1 margin. Even some Senate Republicans will admit that not all their colleagues are thrilled about the bill's contents.
We could spend 4 weeks, we could spend 4 years. And when we're done, not every Republican senator is going to want a French kiss this final product. It's just not going to happen.
That is such a weird way to phrase that. Why would you force us all to imagine lawmakers tonguing a stack of paper? But as regular viewers know, Kennedy loves gratuitous sex talk, from inserting the phrase, I like omelettes better than sex, into a discussion about, and this is true, USAID cuts, to this memorable moment.
I can't wait to have your cock in my mouth.
It's always good. And it is important to remember that in the records of Congress, there is an answer to the question, what if Foghorn Leghorn was a power bottom? And look, as of taping, the bill still needs to clear the Senate and then go back to the House, and things are still coming in and out of it. But the broad contours are clear. It is a massive redistribution of wealth upward, accompanied by gigantic cuts to critical programs for the most vulnerable. So given that, tonight, let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill, what it contains and what it will actually do. And let's start with the fact, when Trump talks about this bill, the main thing he emphasises is that it will extend the tax cuts Republicans passed in 2017 and add some more, which he claims will be good for everyone. The White House recently said it will deliver a blue-collar boom, all caps, which sounds like a new special at IHOP titled The Smurfs Movie that'll make you immediately shit yourself. But that is more than a little misleading, because while the bill does contain tax cuts for basically everyone, their benefits are massively concentrated among the wealthiest Americans. In fact, 60% of the tax cuts would go to the top 20% of households. And you should know, just about every independent analysis agrees this bill would add trillions to the national debt. And to the extent the bill's tax cuts are going to be paid for at all, it'll be through slashing programs that benefit the poor. And I want to talk about 2 key areas they're targeting: healthcare and food assistance. When it comes to healthcare, there are lots of cuts, both big and small. For instance, the bill fails to extend tax credits for healthcare premiums under the ACA, while adding burdensome paperwork that would make it hard for people to remain on the plans they already have. And I know that might not sound like much to you, but it's estimated those tweaks alone will lead to 4.2 million people becoming uninsured, which makes them pretty consequential tweaks. It'd be like changing RuPaul's Drag Race to Rand Paul's Drag Race. You can call it just a tweak, but it's about to make everything way worse. But the big target here is Medicaid, the public insurance program providing health coverage to, among others, people with low incomes and disabilities. Though, this bill's defenders will insist Medicaid is safe.
I'm going to say this very clearly. Our legislation preserves Medicaid, strengthens Medicaid for the people who actually need it and deserve it.
Look, we're going to do everything we can to strengthen Medicaid, to preserve it for those who need it the most.
Medicare, Medicaid, none of that stuff is going to be touched.
Nothing.
I want you to have to.
Okay, but there's a few problems there, starting with the fact following through on a promise not to touch something has never exactly been one of Trump's strong suits. Also, the math just doesn't support those claims. As one analysis puts it, major Medicaid cuts are the only way to meet House budget resolution requirements. And the big way this bill tries to do that is by adding work requirements for many low-income recipients who got coverage under Medicaid expansion, effectively removing a lot of them from the rolls. Basically, under the bill, to get Medicaid, they'd have to prove they worked, volunteered, or went to school for 80 hours a month. That alone is projected to cause over 5 million Americans to lose coverage by the end of the decade. Though to hear Mike Johnson tell it, that's just not a problem, because they're just targeting one specific group.
You don't want able-bodied workers on a program that is intended, for example, for single mothers with 2 small children who's just trying to make it. That's what Medicaid is for, not for 29-year-old males sitting on their couches playing video games. We're going to find those guys and we're going to send them back to work.
Okay, 29-year-old males sitting on the couch playing video games? How is it possible that Mike Johnson always sounds so old and out of touch while also managing to look like a 12-year-old who dressed up as Stephen Colbert for Halloween? The problem with that argument is that most Medicaid enrollees are working. The most recent data shows that nearly 2 in 3 work. And most of the rest have a disability, are caring for family members, or are attending school. And yet, Republicans won't stop painting lurid scenarios of Medicaid freeloaders. For instance, here's the current head of Medicare and Medicaid Services, who, remember, is inexplicably Dr. Oz, unloading the single weirdest hypothetical you will ever hear in your life.
Here's the metaphor. You get home at night with Lou, and there's someone sitting on your couch in the basement. You don't know them. But they have health insurance that you're paying for. And you say, listen, to keep his health insurance, I want you to apply for a job. You don't have to work. Just apply for a job, go get an education, volunteer somewhere, be involved in the community, or take care of one of the kids in the family, help out a little bit. If they say no, you say, well, I'm taking your insurance away. That's not an unreasonable deal to make.
Okay, let's just pause together for a moment and unpack what he just described. In that scenario, you get home at night to find a complete stranger sitting on your couch in your basement. Naturally, the first thing they say is, hi, I have health insurance that you're paying for. But instead of screaming and immediately calling 911, you calmly say, okay, person I've never seen before, I'll let you keep the health insurance I just found out I'm paying for without asking who you are or how you got into my house. My one and only requirement is that you apply for a job. You can use my Wi-Fi, as apparently you live in my basement now, and that's a reality I've quickly accepted. Or you can go get an education or volunteer or take care of one of my kids. Naturally, I trust you, a complete stranger, unexpectedly in my home with the lives of my children. And then this individual says, no, that doesn't seem reasonable to me. So you say, okay, well, you leave me with no other option. I'm going to have to take your insurance away. Obviously, you can still live in my house. That goes without saying, your family now. But you'll have to find a way to pay for your own health insurance. That's not an unreasonable deal to make. But honestly, the weirdness of that scenario is actually preferable to what it sounds like when Dr. Oz gives you a glimpse into what he really thinks work requirements are for.
I have confidence in the American people. You give people a chance to work, and we know we have twice as many jobs as there are people looking for them. Go out there, do entry-level jobs, get into the workforce, prove that you matter, get agency into your own life. It's a much more enjoyable experience if you're going through life thinking that you control your destiny, and you'll get better insurance at the same time.
Hold on. Prove that you matter? So a person only means something if they work. That is not true at all. In fact, if ever there were proof that you can work for decades while adding exactly zero value to society, it is Dr. Oz himself, who, as we have mentioned before, once did an episode of his show where he asked Cameron Diaz this.
Does this ever happen to you?
Luckily, no, I'm not a girl that gets constipated.
That is the perfect facial response to that. That was on daytime television. That played in restaurants and waiting rooms. And as if work requirements weren't bad enough, many are worried that federal cuts to Medicaid will mean that states are likely to cut things like home and community-based supports, which will have huge consequences for those who rely on those services to literally keep them alive, as they have been trying to make people understand.
20% of Erie County residents receive Medicaid services, including more than 100,000 children. But that funding is now in jeopardy.
Advocates for people with disabilities say cuts to Medicaid could mean cuts to home health care, services that literally enable some residents to get out of bed each day.
I really truly believe that without Medicaid, without my direct care workers, my personal care assistants, I would be dead.
Yeah, that woman clearly deserves to have health care that keeps her alive, even in the insane theoretical situation that she somehow moved into someone's basement with no warning, which, to be clear, has never happened to anyone and never will. That would still be the case. And as if that weren't bad enough, and it really is, it is worth noting people not on Medicaid will be affected too, as it's a major source of funding for hospitals across the country. So with these cuts, rural hospitals are likely to be forced to reduce the services they offer, cut staff, or close altogether. When we take all of the bill's provisions concerning healthcare together, the CBO estimates they'll result in 16 million more uninsured people in the year 2034 than would otherwise be the case. And it is not like people haven't tried to warn Republicans of the consequences. A few weeks ago, we showed you this clip of Joni Ernst delivering a bonkers response to concerned constituents at a town hall.
People are not
Well, we all are going to die. For heaven's sakes, folks.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. But incredibly, it's still not as bad as the sarcastic follow-up video that she posted the next day.
Hello, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to sincerely apologize for a statement that I made yesterday at my town hall. I made an incorrect assumption that everyone in the auditorium understood that, yes, we are all going to perish from this earth. So I apologize. And I'm really, really glad that I did not have to bring up the subject of the Tooth Fairy as well.
What the fuck is wrong with you? First, did you actually drive to a cemetery for your fun little video there? And second, no one was under the impression that we're all immortal, nor do we think the Tooth Fairy is real, nor indeed the Easter Bunny. Now, do I happen to believe that leprechauns exist? Yes, but that's because of a personal experience I once had in Dublin. I don't want to get into it now. Suffice to say, I'm down one pot of gold and I know what I saw. But in any case, the problem isn't being naive to the concept of death. Is that this bill could make people die sooner than they otherwise would. So, that is healthcare. What about the other crucial programme on the chopping block here involving food? Well, this bill also includes massive cuts to SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Programme, or food stamps. Currently, more than 41 million people receive benefits through it. It's the nation's largest food aid programme. And this bill would reduce federal spending on SNAP by $287 billion over 10 years. Like the Medicaid cuts, a lot of that is being done through work requirements. SNAP already has those, but this bill's about to expand them significantly, including raising the age limit at which they apply from 54 all the way up to 64. The Senate's version would also strip exemptions from work requirements for veterans, people experiencing homelessness, and former foster youth. And guess who is completely fine with all that?
If you're going to get free food on a SNAP program, you have a work requirement. It's an obligation to try to work. You might not get a job, but you got to try.
Yeah, Dr. Oz is back with his pull yourself up by your own connections to Oprah bullshit. That man is a real piece of shit. Which piece of shit? Who can say exactly? One estimate found more than 5 million people would be at risk of losing at least some of their food assistance. And on top of that, for the first time, the bill would require states to pay for a portion of SNAP benefits and cover more administrative costs. In fact, the CBO estimated that in a 10-year period, this would shift about $121 billion in costs to state governments, which has a lot of people worried because states may not be able to afford that, and those added costs could force them to shrink SNAP eligibility or even leave the program altogether. And it is not like food banks can easily pick up the slack here, as the head of one in Iowa will tell you.
We care about
SNAP is the most effective tool that we have to fight hunger in the United States.
Riverbend Food Bank President Chris Ford says for every meal his food bank provides, SNAP gives out 9 meals.
We would not be able to meet the needs of all those individuals. It would be unprecedented times for food banks.
Yeah, it's not great to hear the phrase unprecedented times for food banks, given they just survived a global pandemic. In the same way that I'd be nervous to hear that it's going to be an unprecedented year for Katy Perry. What more can possibly happen to her? She went to space and fumbled this historic baddie. Orlando, I need you to contact me urgently. One of my writers is single and is pointing a loaded gun at me as I read this to you. And at this point, it is worth pausing to explain what's really going on here with both Medicaid and SNAP. Because even if you're thinking, well, maybe work requirements are needed and limits should be put on who gets these benefits, there are some important things you should know. First, study after study has shown work requirements do not increase work. What they do cause is large drops in program participation, including, crucially, a lot of people who are actually still eligible to receive help. And the reason for that is something called administrative burdens. Basically, all the obstacles between someone and a program they're qualified to receive, from paperwork to interviews to regular check-ins and recertification, which can wind up kicking them off. This happens much more than you'd think. One survey of people who were eligible for but not participating in SNAP found that 40% were deterred by the paperwork involved, and another 37% noted that the application was too time-consuming given their family and work responsibilities. And SNAP's administrative burdens have meant that even those who do keep trying can still wind up going without, as this couple with 5 children learned during the pandemic.
For a family of 7 to qualify, their income needs to be under $52,000. What's your best estimate of your yearly income now?
It's like 20,000 or under.
For the two of you, that's combined.
That's combined.
That's combined. You've applied for the SNAP program.
We've been denied several times. It said that I need to turn in verifications of end of employment for jobs that Barry hasn't had in years.
Company doesn't even exist anymore.
Has it been hard to get people on the phone?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, no shit. I have no idea how I'd get the last company I worked for on the phone either, especially as that company was AT&T. I guess my best bet for contacting them would probably be to whisper my complaint into a bottle and throw it into the Hudson River. I can't see any other way. So basically, this bill is taking all that bureaucratic bullshit and somehow making it even worse. And Republicans will insist these new work requirements will work and that no one truly deserving will be left behind. But we know that is not true. And maybe the best way to show this is to look at Georgia and a state program called Pathways to Coverage. It's a program that rolled out there a few years ago, and Republicans apparently use it as a possible template for restructuring Medicaid. Pathways offers health insurance with work requirements, and it launched with testimonials from people like this man who owns an auto repair shop.
Became a member of Pathways in the last year. Pathways is a great program that offers insurance to low-income and working professionals such as myself. But I highly recommend it because, again, it offers that avenue to you for you to have health insurance where you otherwise would not.
Now, on his face, that sounds good. A working man getting health insurance. Dr. Oz would call him someone who matters. Mike Johnson would call him not 29 and playing Halo, so both would presumably think he's a good candidate for health insurance. It's no wonder he became the de facto face of the program. Unfortunately, it quickly became clear Pathways had significant problems, particularly regarding how its work requirement was getting administered. People 50 and older had an especially hard time proving they met the requirements, which forced them to provide paperwork verifying their work status every single month. That can be hard, especially if you're not computer savvy or don't have reliable internet. There were stories like the man who had to spend more than an hour every month uploading employment documents to reconfirm his eligibility, often using the free Wi-Fi at his public library. And this director of a clinic for low-income patients reported that none of her patients had enrolled, and she wasn't surprised.
The qualifications are just too steep. You know, I have patients that I have to put A on the pill bottles if they take them in the morning, and P on the pill bottles if they take them at night. And you expect these people to be able to upload documents and renew their health insurance monthly? It's not going to work.
She's right. Benevolent Anna Wintour is right, because just think about it. No matter who you are, uploading documents can be challenging. Have you ever tried to upload new patient forms to a doctor's online portal? It is a nightmare. You click the upload button and select the PDF of your form, but then the site says something like PDF files not accepted. Please upload .gulp files, except you've never heard of gulp files before, so you Google how do you convert PDF to gulp, and the results say that you need an app called Gulp Transformer that costs $9.99, and so you go back and search free PDF to gulp converter and finally find a site that says you can do it with Adobe Acrobat, but first you have to convert the PDF to a MOOCs file and then convert the MOOCs to a gulp, and at that point you just throw your fucking computer out the window. Even people savvy enough to navigate Georgia's system found it hard. One single mother wasn't able to enroll because she said the portal crashed each of the 3 times she tried to apply, and after calling the customer service line, she bounced around from one robot voice to another before ultimately giving up. Even that repair shop owner had his benefits cancelled twice due to bureaucratic red tape. He described one of those times saying, "My head exploded, I didn't get a text or an email, I did what I was supposed to do, but that wasn't good enough," which is a pretty startling U-turn from the face of Pathways to Coverage. It'd be like Jane Goodall suddenly saying, "You know what? Fuck chimpanzees. They're stupid, hairy arseholes, and if I could strangle everyone until they went extinct, I would." Jesus Christ, Jane, what happened? And this administrative clusterfuck wasn't cheap either. By the end of last year, the Pathways program cost federal and state taxpayers more than $86 million, 3/4 of which had gone to consultants. And 18 months into the program, a mere 6,500 participants had enrolled. And remember, that's the program Republicans apparently modelled their new Medicaid policy on. So if that's what's coming on a national scale, that is fucking terrifying. As one source put it to us, the term people use is work requirements, but that's a misnomer. You should really think of it as a paperwork requirement. And look, I would say that eligible people losing coverage is an unintended consequence. But I think it's the whole point here. Because the vast majority of cost savings that you're getting from instituting something like a work requirement don't come from kicking people off Medicaid and SNAP who don't qualify. They come from kicking off people who do, but who now can't get it because of the burdens you've just put in place. It's death by 1,000 cuts. And the true hypocrisy is, it is not like Republicans aren't up in arms about administrative burdens in other contexts, because when it comes to regulations on businesses, they just never shut the fuck up about it.
I was tired of hearing small businesses say we can hardly make it because of the stack of paper we have to fill out.
Every hour spent on paperwork is an hour not spent on growing their business.
This paperwork and red tape will bury workers and businesses trying to make a living.
Small businesses continuously list Washington red tape and regulation as a top issue, keeping them from growing and in too many cases, simply surviving.
You know, it is pretty striking how horrified Joni Ernst sounds at the idea of businesses struggling to survive. But when it comes to vulnerable human beings, all of a sudden she's like, you know what, grow up, death happens, worms will eventually eat everything you love, someday a real rain's gonna wash the scum from these streets, Ernst 2026, we're all gonna die. And look, I get that red tape can be a problem for businesses, but this is medicine for the sick and food for the hungry. The stakes are just higher. And the burdens this bill is about to impose won't just be kicking 29-year-old gamers and Dr. Oz's imaginary basement squatters off the rolls. They can impact single moms, working people, and those who fear that they would be dead without assistance. Right now, Republicans are trying to rush this bill through because they know how toxic it is. It may have even passed the Senate by the time you are watching this. And while I know there is a lot going on right now, it is worth paying attention to this bill, because if it becomes law, we're going to be looking back on it decades from now, the same way we look back at all the destructive shit that Reagan did. And when that happens, Republicans cannot say they didn't know what was in it or what it would do. Everyone who votes for this should be held accountable, or to put it in terms that John Kennedy can understand, if you're going to vote for this bill, you better French kiss it. Hell, you might as well put its whole cock in your mouth, because you're going to be married to it for the rest of your fucking life.
The ones who care so fiercely that they carry us all. Kate Spade.
As a therapist myself, I know how important it is to be able to have someone that you can talk to about your problems, to bounce ideas off of, process your traumas and your stressors, especially when life is getting out of hand. And although everyone should have a therapist like that they can talk to, sometimes it's...
Hey everyone, today I wanted to open up about something kind of personal. I haven't talked about it really that much because I felt sort of like a jerk. I don't know, something about like worrying about my kids seeing this one day and thinking that, you know, I wasn't just over the moon in love with them, or maybe people seeing it and thinking, how dare you have any complaints, you're so fortunate to have been able to get pregnant and have a family when so many people are struggling. And I feel that too, and there's obviously a lot going on in the world, people have bigger problems than me, so I've just felt sort of unable to talk about what's going on in my own life. But I'm going to try to push through that right now, because I've recently seen a few things online of women sharing their experiences and feeling like they're on an island all alone, because it's really not something that anyone wants to talk about or admit. You feel like a failure for not being perfect, and something about postpartum depression feels different than talking about depression. Obviously, some of you might remember I've talked about my own struggles before with anxiety. I've been diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I've been diagnosed with high-functioning depression. But postpartum depression, and having that specifically connected to being a mom, which is the most important almost identity that I've ever had in my life, it makes me feel really guilty and embarrassed. So there are many reasons why I haven't talked about it, but I feel like this is such a common thing and it's so deeply misunderstood that I just want to talk about it on here for a little bit, one video, and it might explain some things that you've seen, or rather not seen. I haven't been very active, I haven't been posting a lot, and that's for a lot of things, but this is part of it. I have been dealing with what I think is postpartum depression for what feels like 3.5 years now. I had my son back in August of 2021, and then right at about the 1.5 year mark, I started to feel better. And what's weird is when you hear about postpartum depression, you think it's something that, like, you have a baby and it hits you, right? You've heard of the baby blues. This is not that. And this is actually not something that even showed up for me until like 3 or 4 months in. So I got through the newborn phase, and sure, I was tired. It was a lot of work. But I got through those first few months perfectly fine for the most part, and then I started having some issues. Those issues lasted me through about the 1.5 year mark, which I don't know entirely, because when I finally started feeling a little bit more like myself, I got pregnant again, and that just I really didn't get to experience the full journey. It just sort of reset. And now here I am again at the 1.5 year mark, and I'm experiencing new things. I'm starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm feeling a little bit better. Definitely not out of the woods yet, but seeing things clearly and seeing my last several years from this perspective well enough to sort of understand better what was going on and feel like I'm at a place where I can confidently talk about my experience that I've had now 2 times over and what that's looked like for me, in hopes that people who are going through something similar might understand or relate. I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of misconceptions on what postpartum depression is. For me, before I experienced being a mother, what I thought about it when I heard about it was like the moms that wake up in the night and you shake the baby and it's like terrifying, right? Or you've heard stories of moms who hear voices to like burn down their house. I watched a TED Talk on that once, actually. Like, it seems so extreme. That's more, that last example is more postpartum, there's like hallucinations. That's not necessarily postpartum depression. That's something different. But I never had anything like that, right? It was never scary like that. I never had any issues with my kids. I never had any issues. Sometimes people will say you can't bond with your child, you struggle to form a relationship. That's definitely not me. I immediately was so in love with both of my kids. I never had an issue feeling the bond. I never had an issue caring for them or taking, for the most part, steps to care for myself. It was more of just feeling depressed, feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, overstimulated, and not being able to control that as well as I thought I would be able to. So yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions, and if I'm being honest, I don't think anybody can really accurately define yet what postpartum depression is. I mean, here we are in 2025, and I don't think there is a good understanding of it, because, you know, God forbid we do research on the female body and women's experiences. You know, it's who wants to dive into that when we have issues like erectile dysfunction? Postpartum depression? That can't be that hard, but you know what could be? Dicks! Sorry for the bad jokes and me smiling a little bit throughout this. I think it's a little bit of a defense mechanism. I'm really uncomfortable talking about this, by the way. I was sitting here trying to figure out what the hell kind of a video I'm gonna make, and I'm scrolling through TikToks and Instagram Reels and trying to figure out what I can do. Please, may a video just fall into my lap, something that I can make fun of and laugh at, because I don't think I can mentally handle like a heavy topic right now. So I was just looking through dumb stuff, and I just put my phone down. I'm like, I can't do this, and I just sort of like, this sounds stupid, but I like cried for a second. I'm like, I'm feeling like I'm forcing this so bad, and then it hit me. What if I'm just honest for a second and a little bit vulnerable, which is not my favorite thing sometimes, and just talk about like what's been going on and why I'm feeling like this lack of motivation sometimes, and what's been going on in my life to the point of me being so infrequent in posting on this channel. And sure, yeah, I have kids. I have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so that's basically the reason, but it's beyond that. It goes further than that. I'm finding a lot of difficulty just motivating myself to do things that aren't feeding my kids, changing my kids, bathing them, doing things that they're basic necessities for life, right? Those things I find all the motivation for it. Don't really have a choice. But making YouTube videos, I gotta pay the bills, but it falls lower and lower and lower and lower on my priority list, and I'll get more into that later. But I do have to pay the bills, and sponsorships are the best way for me to do that. But the motivation has not been there. Maybe it's PPD, maybe it's just I'm tired, burnout, I don't know. I just couldn't do something silly this time. Like, the world around me is literally on fire, literally right now. Like, the news is terrifying. Things around the world, very scary. Things within our own country, very scary. And things in my own life right now have been hard. Sometimes you just don't feel like laughing at stupid videos online. Sometimes that's what you need, though. So forgive me for keeping it relatively lighthearted on this channel sometimes when I do post. Like, for my own mental health, I need that sometimes. I need a little bit of relief from what's going on. I mean, sure, I see it. I post about it. If you follow me on Instagram, I post about stuff that's going on in the world all the time, and I vent and I talk about what matters to me. But, like, sometimes when it comes to actually sitting down and creating content, I just can't. And people will criticize me for that. They say, you're going to talk about this right now when everything else is going on. It's like, yeah, I know, you're right. And there's a lot of people that can do that, and power to them. But for me right now, at this point in my life, I just need a break from the depressing stuff. I've got enough depressing stuff in my brain. So yeah, let's get into a video on postpartum depression. But before I get into it, to combat the stress, what better than AdamandEve.com? We're all stressed though. And ladies, I've been fighting purity culture for a long time. So whatever's been holding you back, if you feel any shame or fear, whatever, because women feel shame about everything, feel free to go to AdamandEve.com guilt-free and use my code Jacqueline. And this is for everybody, guys, girls, and everybody in between. You're welcome to go to AdamandEve.com. They've got a lot of really fun adult toys that you can use to de-stress. And I did an unboxing video for them. You can click the link in my description below and see all the really cool things that I got to open. Very exciting stuff, very fun deviation from the stress. It's fun, I promise. So go to AdamandEve.com and use my code Jacqueline, Jaclyn, for 50% off any one item and free shipping, which is a sweet deal. And by the way, if you get a little like honey pop up, please ignore it. There's tons of videos on this, but honey goes in and they pop their code up after you've used an influencer's link or code, and they like sort of hijack your sales, and then it doesn't accurately represent what I'm doing, and then I don't look as cool, and then they won't hire me again. And I need them to like me, because that's how I keep the lights on. And especially this big ring light right here in front of me, it's like very, very bright to wash out the bags under my eyes from exhaustion. So need that one for sure. Gotta hide the eye bags and wrinkles.
Hold on.
You're still purchasing your lenses from your optometrist?
What are you doing? Come on.
Walk with me to the glory that is 1-800-CONTACTS.
Quick.
Okay, thanks. So yeah, anyway, I'm scrolling through TikToks and Instagrams. By the way, feel free to send me any Christian cringe you see, because I will eventually finish that video that I started. So just like tag me in the comments or send me a DM with like whatever crazy video you want me to react to at some point. Just today. Today it didn't feel genuine to do that. I had all of this on my mind recently, and the things that have been holding me back from sharing in the past had just a little bit less of a death grip on me today, so I'm just pushing through it. It felt important to me, and it feels good to post videos on things that I think really matter. And this is something that I think is important and we need to talk about, because PPD, postpartum depression, according to the internet, affects 1 in 7 women. I would love to get some updated research on that. I'd like to challenge that statistic, because I do not agree. I think it probably is much higher percentage than that. I think way more than 1 in 7. And my reasoning for that is because how are they getting that number? Who are they at? No one's ever asked me. Are people honest when they're asked? Or do people want to act like they're fine and put on a pretty face because it's hard to admit something is wrong? Also, what would someone consider as PPD? Do people know what it is? I mean, if you asked me and I had my previous understanding of like losing your absolute mind and setting your house on fire and shaking babies and all the things, I would have said like, no, I don't have that. Of course I don't have that. So I challenge the 1 in 7, obviously. I don't like that. I think it's misleading and damaging. This is what the AI overview is on Google. If you search for what postpartum depression is, it says it's a type of depression that affects some individuals after childbirth. Okay, I mean, I guess technically it's after childbirth because it happened to me after I had a baby, but not immediately after. Like I said, it didn't get me until like 3 or 4 months in. It's more intense and lasts longer than the baby blues, which are common mood swings experienced by many new parents. Sure, yeah, it's different than baby blues. Baby blues is something that just you're sort of sad right after having a baby. That's actually not something that I personally experienced. I was like in love, over the moon, happy, like in La La Land, tired, but very happy for the first several months. PPD can manifest as feelings of sadness, anxiety, and extreme fatigue that interfere with daily life and the ability to care for a newborn. I mean, also, no, so many things wrong with this. First of all, it says newborn. Technically, a baby is only a newborn up until 2 months. So you got a 1-month-old, and then when your baby is 2 months old, boom, they're no longer considered a newborn. So if I didn't start getting symptoms until I was like 4 months in, what is that then? It can't be PPD. Also, I never had any issues caring for my kids, not even when they were a newborn, never. So yeah, I never had an issue taking care of my kids. I never had an issue bonding with my kids. I never had an issue with how much I loved my kids. It was just that I personally started to feel very anxious, very depressed, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and that was having a really big effect on me. It shows up different for everybody. There's such a big spectrum of it, but that's why I think these types of definitions you see on Google are actually really damaging. Because someone might think, oh, well, that doesn't make sense for what I'm feeling right now. It must not be postpartum depression, and now I have no idea what's going on with me. There must be something wrong. I must be weird. I'm broken. I'm a failure. That's why I want to make this video. It can manifest in different ways. Sometimes it's not about feeling the connection to your baby or being able to care for them. There are so many overwhelming emotions all of the time that you have to sort through. It's really hard. It's an emotional roller coaster, and you start to lose sight of like where your baseline is. And it's even more difficult when you don't have the support. That was also me. I happen to not live near my mom or my dad or David's parents. We're sort of out here on our own. And for the most part, David's been very busy. Obviously, whenever I had my second child, my daughter, he then had to take on more of the like taking care of the toddler role because he had to. I was with the baby. But it was tough. It's been tough. It's tough on a relationship. People don't really talk about that either. It's tough on finances. For me, I didn't get maternity leave because I'm self-employed, right? So I then have to battle this issue with a career that if you're not frequent, your relevance dies and then your job is gone. When you have small kids that you have to pay for, they're very expensive, by the way, you need to be able to keep your job. You have to keep working. I do not have the luxury of not working, but I also was a full-time mom, so I was trying to balance all of these things along with my own struggles, and it was really, really tough. It still is really tough. I'm not speaking totally in the past tense right now. It is still currently very tough. I don't have the luxury of not working, but at the same time, like, I want to check myself because, like, is that a luxury for me? It's so confusing, and I still haven't landed on the right answer of what I want. I don't even know what I want. That's how confusing all of this can be. It's like your brain slows down and the brain fog lasts forever. Maybe it's because I'm still nursing, but I still have it. It's very frustrating. You lose sight of who you are and your identity and what you want, and like I go back and forth on days of feeling like I wish I didn't have to work. I wish I could just delete my social media, and then 5 minutes later I'm like, oh, I really wish I hadn't even thought that thought because I'm so thankful to have my social media. And my YouTube channel literally, like some of you might know this, it quite literally saved my life about 10, oh my god, how many years ago? 12? 13? 14? I'm old, I've been here for a long time, but it did pull me out of a very dark place and gave me hope. And that's not something I want to give up on. And I don't want my entire identity as a person to be mom. And that's something that contributes to struggles of parents. especially women. Like, you don't even have a name anymore. You go everywhere and you're mama, which is fine, it's cute, but it does consume you. It consumes your personality and your identity, and for me, I sort of forgot who I am outside of being a mom. And I think if I gave up on this, I think it would cause that identity crisis to just spiral even further. So there are moments where I'm like, I love my kids so much. I hate that I can't spend every second with them. I hate that I have to sacrifice time with my kids. I miss them when I'm not around. I miss them right now. Like right now, I feel bad that I'm not playing with my kids. I'm not spending time with my kids because I'm here. But then it's like when I'm with them, I'm stressed that I'm not working. And that's a paradox for so many women. It's like society expects you to work like you don't have kids, and expects you to raise your kids like you don't have to work. Some people may have the luxury of not having to work and want that. I don't even know that I want that. Sometimes I think I want that, but like I said, I don't want to lose myself entirely. I'm like grasping at the straws with the person that I was and still am somewhere in there. Some people can't afford even to do that. They cannot afford to not work, and that's me. We are a dual income household. My income is essential. And I can't afford to not work. We had a babysitter for a while, and then recently my son started preschool 3 days a week, which has helped me get some work done, and that's great, but like it was really hard for me. It was really hard for me to give up some of that time with him. It's sad when he's away. I feel like I'm not being a good mom. Like this is, and I'm not looking for people to leave comments and telling me that I'm wrong or that it's okay. I'm just telling you my struggles. I'm sure other people feel this way. When I drop him off, when he's not with me during the day, I feel bad. I feel like he's only going to be little once, right? He's 3 years old. Told myself I wasn't going to cry. Here I am having him spend entire days away from me, and I'm missing out on that time, right? But I also have to work. I don't have a choice. And it's just sort of this like depressing dynamic and double standard, because people will tell me that it's bad of me to do that. People will tell me that it's bad of me not to do more of that. And I never see, this is sort of a side note, I never see David getting any of that. I don't see dads getting that criticism. They can do what they do and they get praise, right? Oh, so what a good dad goes to work. What a good dad gave the kids a bath. And I only ever see how much of a failure I am online. I only ever see my choices getting torn apart. And as much as I can like write that off, because literally you can flip to the next video and it'll be someone saying that you are doing the right thing, but then the next one's like, this is why you're going to ruin your kid's life forever for doing that thing. And it's just a constant like battle of getting completely conflicting information all the time. It just makes you, it does make you feel like shit. Like I have to put my phone away sometimes and be like, no, I've got to follow my intuition a little bit on some of my choices, and I'm doing my best. And then it's so expensive even to do babysitters or to do preschool that it's like, am I even gonna make enough money to justify the amount of money we're spending on all this stuff? I mean, it does balance out to a profit, but like, is it worth it? Like, I don't even know any. It's like, it's so friggin' expensive. The finances are overwhelming, and the lack of support is overwhelming, and the constant judgment and self-criticism is overwhelming. And sometimes I wonder, like, is that postpartum depression? Which is, I mean, I'm saying that that's what it is because that's what I've been told.
Want to actually reach your health goals by summer? Factor makes it so easy. Thanks to Factor, eating clean, even on the longest workout days, is so easy.
Right, I've done all the things. I've gone to doctors, I've done therapy, I've done the SSRIs. My options are very limited, by the way, since I'm still breastfeeding my daughter. But like all the things, and I'm being told that, you know, I haven't gotten like an official diagnosis, but I am being told that's what all of this is. But I'm like, well, wouldn't anybody in certain situations feel a sense of overwhelm? But maybe it's just the way I'm handling it. I don't know. I'm overwhelmed. I'm stressed. I get touched out. I get very overstimulated. It's just so hard to control that sometimes. And then you feel guilt. I lose sleep sometimes. I'm thinking about whether my kids are going to look back on their childhood and be happy for all the hard work that I put in, or be or be mad at me for the moments that I wasn't my best self. Remembering the moments where I did get overstimulated, and that's my biggest fear. And like I said, I've tried all the things. I'm managing this as best I can, but it's really hard. And unfortunately, there's no like magic fix-it button other than time. And that's why I'm so happy that I'm at that like 1.5 year mark, because I'm starting to see a little bit of hope, but it's still hard. SSRIs, unfortunately, didn't really do a whole hell of a lot for me. They just didn't. Hopefully they, you know, I'm not saying to not go down that route. I never want to discourage it, but for me, it didn't really help much. Also, it made me gain weight, and when you're postpartum and you're trying to lose weight from the baby, gaining the weight, it's also that sort of a depressing thing, and I hate to even complain about this. This is the same thing as the same thing as talking about postpartum depression makes me feel like I'm complaining about kids. I'm not complaining about my kids. I love my kids. I would not change a thing, and I know people would give anything to be able to have what I have and have children and be able to get pregnant that struggle. And I know there are people who struggle with their health and their weight way more than me. So who the hell am I to talk about my weight changes and my issues with how I look now, and that it has like affected me? Like, I feel like an asshole. But the honesty in me right now wants to share anyway that like that is a struggle. I've struggled with my image and how I look and how my body has changed, and like in general, I mean, sure, I put makeup on for this video, and I have, like I said, a blinding ring light that tries to like hide my imperfections, but I look like I'm getting older, and that's just how I'm gonna look, and my body's changing, and it's all a lot. I feel like shit talking about anything with this, and I think that's one of the hardest parts for me about postpartum depression is just the guilt that comes with all of it, the embarrassment, the feeling like a failure. These early years of my kid's life they're going by so fast. I feel like my son was just born and now he's gonna be 4 in a few months. This haze that I've been in, these emotional roller coasters that I've been like trying to internalize and cope with, it has led me to feeling like I'm missing a lot of these years because I'm in such survival mode. 2 pregnancies that close together for me, which people do it even closer. I don't know how. I don't know how you guys do it, but for me, this was harder than I thought it would be. I don't know what I thought. No one talks about this. No one talks about this stuff. Everyone posts these happy pictures and all this bullshit about how, you know, easy it all is, right? I'm not saying it's bullshit that people are happy. It's not bullshit when I post that I'm happy. All of that's true. It's simultaneous, right? It can coexist. The happiness and the struggle can coexist. The incredible, I've never felt a love this strong as I do with my kids. That intense feeling of love somehow, in my world, coexists with depression. Each one does not invalidate the other. I hope my kids know that I love them, and I hope that if they see a video like this or ever hear me post on Instagram about postpartum depression or struggles as a mother, I hope that it's not taken personally, and I'll just have to do my part in educating and explaining, but I don't want to like pretend that this is easy, because it's not, and I don't want to lie to people online who might then judge themselves because they think it's supposed to be easy and it's not easy for them, so what's wrong with them? And you know, my kids are gonna grow up one day, and what if they have their own families and they think, well, my mom had it so easy? Like, I want everything to be honest, okay, within reason. But the fact that like I am having these struggles, even though like the logic side of my brain understands, right, the emotional part of me feels a lot of guilt. I feel a lot of guilt for having these struggles and not just basking in the glory of being a mom, which is literally what I have always dreamt about since being a little girl. And the fact that I haven't been able to be 100% happy every day, that sucks. And I feel really guilty. Like I said, I wouldn't change a thing. And the struggle can exist with the happiness. That might not make sense to everybody watching, but it makes sense to me, and probably to a lot of moms out there who are watching. So PPD for me has not been a struggle to bond, has not been a struggle to function, has not been a struggle to love my children, but it's there. The struggle is there. Constant guilt is there. Almost like a mom imposter syndrome is there. Sometimes I think I do a good job at trying to soak it all in, remember everything, and appreciate it, but I don't all the time. I do feel like I miss opportunities to have memories, or I don't know, I'm rambling at this point. I need the waters to calm. And I mean that within myself, right? I've got 2 young kids, and that does not equal calm, that equals chaos. But I mean within my own brain, my own mind, finding who I am now, my new self, remembering who I was, incorporating who I am, and figuring out who that is going to make me become. And having part of that identity be something that exists outside of being a mom, because otherwise I will let that just eat me up. And that's not good for my kids either. As much as it is nice to be a mom and have that be a big part of who I am, it can't be everything. At least not for my mental health. Maybe other people can do it. Anyway, that's what my goals are. That is part of why I've been a little less frequent on this channel. I've been going through it. And I've been busy. I've been busy as hell. But I'm going to try to get back into it. Figure out a good work-life balance where, you know, I have a lot of time with my kids, but I can still get my shit together and post content and remember who I am. And, you know, I gotta make that money, honey. I don't have a choice. I want to do it in a way that is authentic, right? And that means something to me. And I know that that's why I started this channel, because talking about like important things that mean something to me turns out that means something to me. Anyway, I'm gonna stop rambling. If you've made it this far, thank you. You can probably hear thunder. It's ready to storm like crazy here. If you can relate and feel like sharing, I'd be excited to see what you have to say. This is going to be a video, one of those videos where I absolutely pour through the comments because I'm just so interested in other people's experience. I want to create like almost like a forum here where we can all share and talk about our journeys, because it is so different for each person that I want to have a variety, right? A variety of choices for people to come here and relate to, because what I've said, some parts might relate to, some parts might not. And it's a spectrum of unresearched territory that needs research desperately. Maybe you guys can make friends. Maybe you could be my friend. If you live in the Nashville area and you're a mom going through something similar, hit me up, because I probably won't have time. If I'm being honest, I won't have time. I want to have friends. I have like one friend. That's another thing I need to work on. I need to have like a social life. I don't think I've left my house in 4 years, but you know what I mean? I would love to just connect with people, and then who knows, at some point when I can come up for air, who knows what could happen. But for right now, it's just, you know. Oh, before I go, please check out Adam and Eve. Use my code Jaclyn, Jaclyn, for that discount. It will help me out a lot. I would love for them to keep using me for sponsorships. And they won't if they don't think I'm cool. And don't use honey. If you want to see more content like this, I've been pretty open about these topics on my Instagram. I also post to TikTok about the same things. Like and subscribe. I'm going to focus on some women's rights issues on this channel. As you've seen, I will continue to do that. And of course, religion and all the Christian cringe. So I'll see you in the next one. All right. All the love. Bye.
Mia from Illinois just ordered, and I literally want to be her when I grow up. She picked tiramisu, mocha, and snickerdoodle protein coffee. An elite breakfast combination.
If y'all don't, if you can't read from this picture right here how sad this thing was, how pathetic this was, then this video says it all.
Today, Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. Today marks the 3-year anniversary of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. And in the years since the Supreme Court's devastating decision, dozens of states have moved to restrict access to abortion care, communities have been torn apart, and women in states like Georgia and Texas have died. Since the Dobbs decision overturned the precedent set by Roe v. Wade in 2022, 14 states have banned abortion across the United States, and 1 in 7 women in states with abortion bans say they or someone they know has had trouble accessing abortion. While there are so-called exceptions to the laws, providers across the country say the language is vague, confusing, and difficult to apply when patients need care. In Georgia and Texas, at least 5 women have died because of this. The decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and strip away reproductive freedom from millions of people across the country was driven by a shift in the Supreme Court's makeup, rounded out by Donald Trump's appointment of 3 staunchly conservative justices during his first term. Now, President Trump has repeatedly, very proudly, he appointed the justices that then overturned it, ending 50 years of a precedent and robbing millions of women the freedom to make their own decisions about their families, their future, and their own lives. And now for a bit, just a bit of good in the world. Free and Just is a campaign to amplify the voices of people affected. They recently hosted a press conference for the anniversary of the Dobbs decision, and pretty soon here I'm going to include 2 interviews here from women who wanted to share a bit of what they're fighting for. I'm really impressed at how they've used storytelling to really showcase what's going on and how it's affecting real people. Their mission goes beyond election cycles. I mean, no matter who's in office, they're focused on fighting back against abortion bans, protecting and expanding reproductive freedom. I was given 2 interviews by women who attended, and I am so excited to share their voice.
My name's Jocelyn Sanchez. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Manager for Deeds Not Words, and I am here to represent the young folks of Texas that want to affirm that reproductive justice and abortion are a right and should be given to all people, regardless of immigration status, regardless of gender, and regardless of whatever circumstances they might be in. If we don't have abortion, then we don't have our right to live freely, and that's a basic fundamental right that should be guaranteed to all people. These political decisions affect our health, down to very personal decisions that should be left to us and our doctors as individuals.
Yes, perfectly said. I'm so excited to see so many women out there showing up to events like this, speaking out, protesting, and making sure that their voices and experiences are heard.
When it comes to things like testifying, especially at the legislature or in local efforts, storytellers are really the ones that make the most impact. I feel like politicians can hear all the statistics in the world, but when you put a face to it, when you put a reality to it, it really makes the biggest difference. Everyone has a story, right? And everyone has a unique circumstance that is very impactful. And so I think that storytelling should just be the foundation that we move forward with, and should be what politicians are truly listening to rather than political interests.
Beautifully said. I love this, and honestly, like, I do that too. I use my channel a lot with storytelling. That's like how I feel I can communicate the best, and honestly, in my experience from the feedback I've received, that's when I am the most effective. People feel like they can relate to me, and that makes them feel seen, and in this case, maybe somebody will see them.
Hi, my name is Jessica. I'm a mom here in Texas of 2 small children. I'm here today at the steps of the Capitol, coming up on the anniversary of the Dobbs decision. I was really shocked by what Congressman Leach presented. It was completely false. He called women who have abortions damaged.
I mean, you know what? I shouldn't even be surprised politicians saying messed up things, especially towards women, about women's rights. Wildly insensitive, you know, that kind of a thing. Not new, therefore not surprising, but still depressing. For example, in 2010, Virginia Delegate Bob Marshall suggested that women who have abortions might face divine retribution. And what's their punishment? Having children that are disabled. What? God is good. He stated, and I quote, "The number of children who are born subsequent to a first abortion with handicaps has increased dramatically." Why? Because when you abort the firstborn of any, nature takes its vengeance on the subsequent children. Oh my God! Holy hell! You know what? Back to Jessica.
I'm a married mother. I wanted a family. Unfortunately, many people experience miscarriages on their journey to becoming parents. It's a very, very common thing. It was common for me. I received the care that I needed, and I went on to have 2 healthy pregnancies and 2 very healthy, beautiful children. I wanted to be here as someone who has experienced pregnancy loss and who was given compassionate, comprehensive reproductive health care, because other women weren't so lucky. And I've heard their stories today, and I've read about their stories. And it breaks my heart to think that that could have been me, that could have been my family situation, that could have been my children's situation.
To the ones who carry us, Kate Spade.
To not have me here today.
I've had the same thought, if I'm being honest. Like, I'm getting older, and I have 2 kids. What if I get pregnant again? What if we decide we want more kids? I get pregnant again and something goes wrong. That's a huge fear of mine. If I don't get the care that I need in that type of situation and something happens to me, like, I don't even want to go down that mental path. It's terrifying. It is so scary, and it's so sad that in America, or the land of the free, right, we have to have these types of fears, but I wouldn't get the care that I could leave my children without a mother because of politics. Really? Aren't you guys pro-life? Only when it's convenient? Okay, got it. I don't want to think about it, but you know what? Other people have had to think about it, and they will think about it every single day because they have lost someone. And even if you don't live in a conservative state like me, abortion bans affect you no matter where you are. From recent attacks to access to IVF treatment, to a potential ban on life-saving care for women in crisis, attacks on reproductive freedom have continued to escalate in the past 3 years. It keeps getting worse. Like right now we have 5 confirmed deaths in Texas and Georgia. People around the country are enduring devastating loss, and there is no excuse by the trauma inflicted by the loss of these women. It's not theoretical. These are women with names, with families. You can look at their pictures, and you know what? Let's do that. Let's look at their pictures and let's listen to their stories. Amber Sermon and Candy Miller. They were mothers, daughters, and members of their communities whose lives were cut short by the cruel consequences of restrictive abortion laws. Amber sadly died after doctors delayed critical miscarriage care due to fear of violating Texas abortion ban, despite clear medical need. This is exactly what I was talking about and why I have this fear. Candy's life was tragically lost when political interference forced doctors to withhold timely treatment as her conditions worsened. Portia Gumbezi died in 2023 after bleeding for hours during a miscarriage, while doctors avoided performing a common life-saving procedure out of fear. Nevaeh Crane went to the ER 3 times in one day with severe symptoms, including sepsis, but was denied care because her fetus still had a heartbeat. Jocelyn Barnica was denied miscarriage care for 40 hours until there was no fetal heartbeat. By then, intervention was too late. They died because of political interference in personal medical conditions. Some of these women now have kids with no mother. A mother who may have gone on to have more children. We're all about having more babies, right? Pro-life, right? Anti-abortion politicians have created a system that values control over compassion and ideology over life. And they have the nerve to claim the title of pro-life. What a fucking joke. And they also try to claim freedom. Okay, but don't take the guns, you know, school shootings, we're not going to talk about that. You want to prevent the death of innocent children? Ban the guns, or at least, you know, hell, throw a restriction or 2 out there. But you only claim certain principles when it's convenient, right? They all have a little footnote of exceptions. Well, let me tell you something, a harsh truth. Eventually, you're going to lose somebody that you love. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, but the people affected by what's going on might shock you. They're not all liberal. Is that what it's going to take? Is it really going to take more tragic loss for you to give a shit? For you to have more empathy or understanding on this? If we care about freedom, right? If we care about life, then we need to prove it with our actions, not just our slogans. Thank you again to Free and Just for what you're doing, for all of your efforts to bring awareness through storytelling. If anyone watching was moved by that, or you want to hear more or learn more about the organization, I will leave a link in my description below. Just something that helps me feel a little bit of a light in all of this. It's just nice to just sprinkle a little positivity, a little bit of hope in videos. Selfishly, I needed to. And I hope that hearing the stories of others, hearing my stories on this channel, I hope it motivates you to share. I never want to push anyone's boundaries or make them uncomfortable or put them in an unsafe situation, possibly by talking about things in environments that might not be amenable to that. But I really do encourage people to use your voice, vote, show up to organizations and events and protests, and use social media. Use that. That's a strong power that a lot of people can tap into to have a sense of community, but also to bring awareness. That's why this video means a lot to me, and I hope that it makes even one person motivated to go out there and use their voice too. Thanks so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Support me on Patreon, patreon.com/Jacqueline. Follow me on all the social medias. I'll leave all my links in the description below too, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Opiate addiction doesn't mean you're a bad person. That's not who I am. I'm Louis, and I've been with Ophelia since September 2021. When I was 15, I was prescribed a
Working late, 'cause I'm a singer. Can submission be powerful? As I've spoken about many times, I'm one of those weirdos who likes bun.
The Sesh Podcast, episode 233, take 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Sesh. I'm your host, Kendall.
And I'm Janelle, and we're joined by Carly and Sydney as usual. Hello, ladies.
Hello. And today we have a great episode for you guys. We have a lot to talk about. Yes. There's Labubu's on my brain. I have more to say on that. But
Labubu.
yeah, it's a Labubu world, and we're living in it.
Correct.
Anyway, before we get into it, I know we've had a lot of tougher moments, tougher episodes lately. We've had some tough conversations,
Yes.
and Janelle has had
something.
I'd say like just the worst month ever.
It's been rough for a bit. I'll explain. Should I just get into it?
I think it's just I think we need to acknowledge people want to know.
Okay.
Like people have questions,
No,
and
okay.
it's just time.
Okay, so this actually happened several months ago, but I didn't want anyone to, I don't know, I just wasn't ready to talk about it yet, and I kind of just wanted to let the dust settle personally before I get into it. I am no longer engaged, and like I said, it happened a couple months ago, and I know that people, like, I've seen some speculation, because obviously I was engaged for multiple years, and I've also, like, kind of been keeping it up on, like, social media, just because, again, I don't know, I've just kind of wanted to keep it private to myself for now.
Wearing the ring, too, so that, people won't figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't really want to go into much of, like, my personal reasonings as to why I'm no longer with my fiance anymore, and I still have a lot of respect for him and a lot of love for him, and
Cyclops Lane, something's
I wish him the very best, obviously.
You're one of those fast
but
talkers, aren't you? Lovely.
It's been a couple months now, and we've been separated broken up, because we were never married for a while. And now that I've kind of like had some time to be single and just like,
and I need
I don't know, I guess
yes,
kind
you,
of figure
to
out who
help
I
me
am
save
as a single
Cyclops
gal,
Lane.
if you will.
Are you
I figured it would be
to
good to come on and talk
Splendid.
about it with
Then
you guys.
Go to Victor Darkwood in the shopping
And
district.
actually, at this point, I was like, should I tell them? Should I not? Because there's more to this story, and I was like, I don't know. I was about to not say anything, but I also kind of just want to like rip the Band-Aid off at this point, so that I don't feel like I'm hiding anything from you guys anymore. And so I want to go ahead and let you know that for the past couple of months, I have been dating someone else. If we want to go ahead and post the picture of him, because I think
you should just hard launch.
I should just hard launch. Now, before I like kind of show this and talk about it or whatever, if you're paying attention last week, I did kind of have a foreshadowing moment, if you will, and I didn't really intend to, but I was talking about the new guy that I am very lucky to call my own. Last episode, we talked about this man. Should I say his name?
Yeah.
His name is Frank. And we're very much in love. Should we just do a hard launch?
Yeah.
At this point?
Yeah. All right. Put him up.
Put him up. Put up.
It's a beautiful picture.
This is Frank and I. His name is Frank D'Azo.
He's also known as the strong arm.
The strong arm. That's what everyone like in the like community calls him.
Does he have a strong arm?
Oh.
Let me show you how I'm using Grammarly's AI tools when I'm feeling less than creative at work. I do a lot of...
But does he have a strong arm?
And you're hanging on that strong arm.
This my man right there.
That's strong arm money right
This
there.
is Frank D'Azar, everybody.
Which one?
I wasn't lying when
The
I
mean
said
one or
that I
the
had a
evil
crush.
one?
Yeah. Okay.
Tyrus?
And yeah, so
He's
I
the
just wanted to
mean
put that
one.
out there. We don't have to make a big deal out of it. I mean, but you guys have all met him.
Why wouldn't you make a big deal of it? Look at this.
Well, true.
This is true love, people.
Always wear a grumpy
I mean,
pair.
and you guys
Can't
met him. What do you
say I
think?
mind there being one less around
Excellent.
these
Loved
days.
him. That's why I spoke so highly of him last week.
Anyway, here's the old
he's a good
drum
guy.
That is
All his
technically
laundry
me,
clean,
even though like
pressed,
it's just
and
an odd picture. Doesn't really look like
Yeah,
me.
that's
It's definitely
yeah, it was
no
a
matter
weird
what he
photographer.
says.
yeah, weird photographer.
Oh my god, where are you guys here?
We were at a fancy restaurant a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I know it looks exactly like a pic from your bachelorette
it was
party, Sydney,
called-
but it's definitely not. Huh?
The restaurant you were at was Elway's.
Yeah, we were at Elway's.
He loves Elway's.
Yeah, he loves
What's his
Elway's.
favorite kind of meat?
Ooh. What's my favorite kind of meat? I don't eat meat.
Do you like a Frankfurt?
I only
Do
eat
you like
one
a-
kind of meat.
She likes a Frankfurt.
I love a Frankfurt. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, this is my new man. We love him so much.
I'm so happy for you. And I
Thank
really
you.
hope Frank will come on the show. I mean, we're absolutely able to do free ads for him. No problem.
for the strong arm.
Yes, especially once you're married.
100%.
then, you know,
Yeah.
it's a family.
Which is
and
not
friends
going to be
discount.
long because I want to get married quick. So
Yeah. Okay. When
I'm
are you
already
thinking?
planning. Like probably next month.
Oh shit! Next month.
And then we're gonna have little Frank babies.
Oh, Frank babies.
Mm-hmm. My
Little
man.
Frankies.
Here's little Frank.
you. Hi. Morning.
How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
My curiosity, how do you pronounce your full name?
Carissa Smith. Karissa.
It's nice to meet you. How's your day been going so far?
It's been going alright.
So, Carissa, my full name is Ahmad Zanim Aziz. You can call me Ahmad. I'm one of the hiring managers with Atlas. So, it's going to be a short interview, okay?
Okay.
The purpose is to just get to know you outside of your resume. We're going to go with more details about day-to-day, pay structure, and opportunity for the growth. I'll take an interview. Which majority questions which you have is going to get the answer on second interview, okay?
Okay.
Tell me about yourself. Where are you from, and how is your last 2 years look like?
I live in Weedsport, and the past couple of years I've been adjusting to living in the city now. Like, instead of small town.
So for what type of opportunity you're looking for, and how we can help you to achieve those things?
I'm looking for full-time.
And everything with us went good. First round, second round, third round interview. But the team in this position, how soon you can get it started?
I have open availability.
Okay. And also right now the job market is very competitive, so what is something unique about you that separates you from other candidates that we have?
I'm very good with de-escalating people and keeping my calm.
Okay. And what is your driving factors? Like, what helps you motivate you to become more successful?
I would say my partner, because I always want to be my best version for them.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 the highest one, 1 the lowest one, how do you rate yourself as a leader?
I would say like an 8.
Why 8?
Because I can like function in leadership roles fairly easy, but sometimes I have a hard time being at all dominant over other people. Like, if somebody's willing to listen to you, I have a very easy time leading them, versus if it's somebody who doesn't want to listen to you, I'm not as good at persuading them that they should listen to me.
Okay, so what's gonna happen? I took these notes about you. I'm gonna pass these notes to HR team. HR team will back with the job applicants and invite you for a second round interview. The second round interview is gonna be more on about day-to-day pay structure and opportunity for the growth, and then we're gonna go from there. So, with the invite for second round interview, make sure to have questions, because the leaders, they're gonna have so many questions. To make sure this is the right fit for you, can help you to become more successful, and you're a right fit for our business, so we can be the future business partner. So, it's nice to meet you, and I wish you all the best.
You too, thank you.